On today's episode, we are going to recap Shane Wright's season. And is it a foreshadowing of what to expect with Berkly Catton? We will talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, hello, that's not accurate. Oh, hello, Seattle Kraken fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are bringing you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. My name is Erica L. Ayala. I am your host of Locked On Kraken, have been since the very beginning. I am also a contributor to CBS Sports, where I talk women's basketball as well as hockey. You can also find me over at Tempestagi Talk, which is a podcast covering the Seattle Storm as part of Black Rosie Media, where I am the founder. And, yesterday's episode, I basically told you, listen, I wasn't surprised about the lotto. I'm more concerned that there is a lack of direction, or at least not a direction that's been communicated, or even that kind of makes sense with regard to the Seattle Kraken. I'm a little bit more concerned about that. But again, we have our great hosts over at Locked On NHL Prospects already doing their mock drafts, and we're going to talk about all of that and get an idea of what we can get at pick number 8, because we had pick number 8 last season. And we're going to talk a little bit about Berkly Catton and the Spokane Chiefs. First time in, what is it, 17 years that they're going to a final. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But first, let's talk about Shane Wright. If you've been listening to the last few shows and making us your first listen of the day, our everydayers, then you know I've been giving you little snippets of an exclusive interview that I had with Jessica Campbell at a conference in New York City. And one of the things that we talked about was Shane Wright and his growth. And Jessica agreed with my estimation that while Matty Beniers, his introduction to the NHL was trial by fire, throw him in, and he's had to learn the physical aspects of the game as he's gone on. For Shane, his physicality, especially coming into his first full NHL season, he had an understanding of that. It was more of the mental side of the game, and that kind of led to some of the, you know, healthy scratches and resets that we heard. Uh, and so, because I played that clip about Shane and Maddie from Jessica Campbell on yesterday's episode, I wanted to today talk about Shane. And we'll have an episode where we talk about Maddie Beniers later in the week. But I want to talk about Shane because I think a lot of people wanted to see Shane get more time. And in the grand scheme of things, with how the Seattle Kraken ended the season, I could see why people would think that. And the approach for Shane has been thoughtful. I was gonna almost say calculated, but I'll say thoughtful. And just because the Seattle Kraken are not and were not playoff bound for, I mean, technically they weren't mathematically eliminated, but we knew it was looking pretty bleak just because of some of the bad habits. Um, I think that in that kind of firestorm, you could be tempted to say, hey, just like with Matty B, right? Throw him into the fire. And I think you could argue that it worked out well for Matty Beniers. He won Rookie of the Year. The Seattle Kraken were playoff bound. And so I think it's a worthy criticism and critique. I'm going to lean into what Dan Bilesma and Jessica Campbell and the rest of the coaching staff at the time believed was best for Shane. And if you heard that clip from Jessica, she talks about, the unique part of Shane Wright from her perspective is that, she had spent time with him in the AHL. And so there was this continuity, which Shane also talked about. We'll hear from him later on the show or in just a moment. Um, I have a lot of questions. If you listen to the show every day, my everydayers, um, my first listen of the dayers, then I have a lot of questions about this organization, and I've never questioned, for me, the trajectory of Shane Wright. I hear him talking to media. I have gotten to speak to him individually, whether it was at training camp. I caught up with him when the team was playing the New York teams. That's always a fun trip for me. I get to be back home and then also covering the Kraken. And Shane, in how he was speaking and how he was able to articulate what was happening, I never felt any discomfort. I could see the growth, I could see the potential, and I never got the sense that Shane was disgruntled by what was happening. Now, I don't know that Shane would necessarily let that on in media, and definitely I don't know that anyone was more disgruntled and vocal about it than Philip Grubauer, which is very rare for Philip Grubauer. He's very much, those conversations are going to stay among me and the coaching staff kind of thing. So I'm okay with taking time for Shane, especially if it yields better results in the long term. And when we look at Shane, after that reset, he became one of the top scorers, almost a 20-goal scorer. Remember, we were doing that countdown on the show. And he was seeing special teams minutes and was the leader in power play goals. So again, I think that we can definitely nitpick in certain areas. I'm okay to have that conversation. For me, though, I'm also okay to take again, a little bit more thoughtful approach to Shane Wright, because this was the year that he needed to get the development. Remember, he's younger than Matty Beniers, and Matty Beniers' Olympic experience, NCAA experience, before coming to the NHL. And so comparing the two, it's not like for like in every category, even though they play the same position. They approach the game differently. Their experience in the game at an elite level different. Because if you look at what Shane did, juniors, even with Hockey Canada, is that exactly the same as what Matty Beniers did at Michigan and then at an Olympic Games? Ooh, I don't think so. That's just my opinion. So I'm okay with taking some time with Shane Wright. But speaking of Shane, I want you to hear a little bit from his exit interviews. I thought he had some really great insights. Again, I think that's a growth trajectory for Shane Wright, is that he's able to communicate so well what he's kind of experiencing, what he's going through, what the expectations are. And I really enjoyed hearing from him. So here are just a few snippets from Shane Wright at the Seattle Kraken exit interviews.
Proud of myself for how I respond to that, and I'm proud of myself for how much I grew, how much I learned throughout this year. And sticking with it, and just really enjoying the process, enjoying being an AHL player, and really happy with my year personally and how it went overall for me. It was nice for sure. It was nice kind of having a little bit of stability, knowing where I'm going to be and where I'm going to play, and the coaching staff I'm with and the group of guys I'm around every day. It's definitely nice having a little bit more stability this year and just getting comfortable with being an NHL player, being a pro here, trying to adjust to that and on a day-to-day basis, and what life is like as an NHL player. So just being or having that stability made it a little easier for that adjustment. I think you're always trying to set goals for yourself. Always have expectations for yourself. I always try to have high expectations for my game and how I want to play and how I want to produce. So I wouldn't say there's exact numbers for next year, but I think just keep getting better every day and improve as much as I can and see let the result kind of take care of itself.
I mean, look at that head of hair. We'll get back to Shane in just a moment. But again, what I'm hearing from him is that he was proud of what he was able to do. He was grateful for the opportunity to learn the NHL. He had a little dabble here, a little dabble there, but this was his first time playing with the big boys, as the song goes from Prince of Egypt. Anyway, playing with the big boys now. I love that song. Anyway, I cracked myself up. All right. Anyway, moving on. I I'm okay with the trajectory. And if it doesn't change next year, all of the conversations, the carryover conversations completely valid. And that's a big and because the expectation at the end of the season was that Shane would be able to grow and develop with the same coaches that he just mentioned in that clip. That's not going to happen. So there seems to be, from what we heard from Jason and Ron and Todd and Sam in that press conference, there seems to be a commitment to professional or player development. And that's why we're hearing that Jessica Campbell is going to stay on. The Kraken has liked what she was able to do with young talent. If you are a part of our insiders community, you can hear me ask very direct questions regarding not just how Jessica Campbell felt about Dan Bilesma and, learning under him, but also what her task would be moving forward. Again, check out our insiders program if you want to hear directly. I'm not going to play those quotes on the podcast. I will say this, we're hoping to follow up with Jessica Campbell once things do become a little bit more clear, so hopefully we'll have an answer there. But you throw in the more patient approach for Shane Wright now in an upheaval when it comes to the head coaching staff. What is that going to look like? And unlike Dan Bilesma, we're under the assumption, right? The assumption will be that the new head coach won't know the pipeline in the way that Dan Bilesma did. Can you tell I still really don't like this firing? I really, really don't like it. I know it was an abysmal year on so many levels, and I will continue to say it. There just are some power struggles that I wish I knew a little bit more about. And I don't know that we're ever really going to unearth that, but it's unfortunate. And potentially for a player like Shane Wright. So, what does the future development of Shane look like? Well, let's hear what he had to say in his own words.
I think just overall for me, just big one is just kind of handling the puck and transporting the puck to the neutral zone, and just having the puck in my stick a little more, and playing with that confidence, playing with that little bit of swagger. Just holding on to it a little more. Not kind of deferring to anyone else, not trying to give it up as fast. Just take it for myself, hold on it for myself, and be a little more selfish with the puck. Yeah, it definitely gives me a lot of confidence. Shows that I need to shoot the puck a little bit more. Shooting percentage was a little too high. I got to put a few more pucks on net, but it definitely gives me a lot of confidence that I can score goals. I can get pucks past goalies at this level, and just need to get a few more opportunities on net there. But
so that was Shane. A lot of insight there, including that he has to be a little more deliberate in keeping the puck, but also shooting the puck. I think, honestly, a lot of Seattle Kraken players needed to do that. But coming up, what can we learn from Shane Wright's kind of growth and development plan? And can it apply to Berkly Catton, including asking for an exemption? We will talk about that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by wonderful pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you feel fuller for longer. And, some people like to go naked with the no shell. Other people like the Zen experience of being able to crack open those shells and pile them up just like edamame. Can you tell that's probably how I enjoy them? Either way, you're getting the nutritional benefits that I already mentioned. You're getting that protein, a big protein punch. And also, either way, you can get your snack on the go. I'm a busy woman. I sit at this desk for hours editing, recording, interviewing, all of the things, and having a grab and go, whether I'm here at the desk and trying not to be hangry or I'm out playing kickball in these mean streets of Tulsa, you can pack that snack to go. So get snacking and get cracking, Seattle hockey fans, with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, a part of your daily destination. We love being your first listen. If you're looking for a next listen, check out Locked On NHL. Not only do we have every night through the Stanley Cup playoffs and the Stanley Cup final, our NHL game night show, but of course, you can catch Rachel Donner and I every Saturday on the Women's Hockey Report. We are going live this Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time because the playoffs start today. Um, for those who are keeping up with the PWHL. So we will be talking after the games on Friday and before both series pick up on Sunday. Let's get back to the Seattle Kraken. Although we do know that they will be sharing a home with a PWHL Seattle team, we're going to stick to the NHL here. Well, I should say to the boys and men's hockey, because we're actually going to talk a little bit about Berkly Catton, in case you didn't know, but I'm sure you do. I'm going to make sure I say this right. I always get in my head, but it is Spokane, right? There we go. The Spokane Chiefs heading to the WHL championship for the first time in nearly 2 decades. The action starts on the road for the Chiefs May 9th and 11th, but 3 home games on the 13th, 14th, and 16th if necessary. And you might know the name Berkly Catton. He was our 8th overall pick last year to the Seattle Kraken. Well, wouldn't you know, he plays for the Chiefs. And right now he sits second overall in the regular season in points for the Chiefs with 109. That's right. 109 points. Andrew Cristall has 132, which is insanity. Then you have Berkly Catton third overall in goals with 38, and Berkly Catton second overall for the team in assists with 71. Now those are the numbers that we're seeing in the regular season. If you take a look at the team leaders in the playoffs, points overall, Berkly Catton still second, 36 points. Goals, Berkly Catton third, tied for third with Matthias Preston with 8 goals. And then for assists, Berkly Catton leads the team with 28 assists as they prepare for the championship series. So, why are we talking about Berkly Catton? Well, if you want a really great in-depth story, take a look at one of Jeff Baker's Upon Further Review columns where he talks about a Shane Wright redux with Berkly Catton, ? For the second time in 3 years, the Kraken have a first-round draft pick centerman dominating major junior hockey, but not allowed to play in the AHL next season because of a decades-old transfer agreement. And in this article, we read Jeff Baker break down what the trajectory has been like for Shane Wright, and if perhaps the Seattle Kraken will consider applying for an exemption for Berkly Catton. Now, we did see Catton in training camp last year. He was one of the first players to leave camp, and I think that's more so want to get him integrated as the first round pick for the organization. And again, pretty clear, I think, that he needed a little bit more development. Berkly Catton had said that. I talked about that when I was in Seattle for training camp and preseason. And so, what are we going to do with Berkly Catton? Well, Jeff Baker asked the question to the then GM Ron Francis, and Ron Francis shrugged and said, quote, "We did it with Shane Wright." And this is, of course, Berkly Catton breaking through camp just like Shane Wright. And now here's the thing with Shane Wright, he did break through in camp. We saw him in preseason and even through the regular season, but he was basically a healthy scratch. So, is that something that the Kraken are going to do again? Well, um, this is what Ron Francis said regarding Catton. If he continues the way he is, Berkly Catton, and we'll get to see him again in the finals, in the final, it's going to at least warrant us taking a closer look. Now, what are the Kraken looking for? Jeff Baker writes, Catton must show in his second training camp that he won't be physically overmatched. Okay, I told you that one of the things clear as day that Shane Wright worked on was his physique, his physicality, his body. He definitely did that. Quote, "It's a big step from junior hockey to the NHL, but he looked fine last year in camp. I think he's got a summer here to try and get a little bit stronger. He's been working all season long with our development team, trying to get stronger off ice. Um, and with his performance on the ice." That's a quote from Ron Francis talking about Berkly Catton. So he's with, he's with Spokane. There's a proximity to the Seattle Kraken, and we see that has paid off. And so, will that make a difference in how Shane Wright developed versus how Berkly Catton can develop? As we see Jeff Baker write in his article, quote, "Nothing is off the table." And with the way the Seattle Kraken ended last season, yeah, nothing is off the table. Now, we'll talk about this as we get closer to free agency, but you have to think about, again, what does as soon as possible mean? I'm going to say this. This is my new mantra. There are like some things that we talk about all of the time on Locked On Kraken. I'm not sure if you've noticed goaltending, Joey Decord versus Philip Grubauer. We talk about that. We're going to talk about Shane Wright. We're going to talk about defense because I love defense, right? This is one of the things that we're going to talk about. ASAP. What does as soon as possible mean? And is there a scenario where if we in earnest are trying to be a playoff team by next year, can Berkly Catton unlock that? Is that the goal? Or is as soon as possible within the next 3 years, maybe extending that even to 5 years? If that is what as soon as possible means, then Berkly Catton should be able to fill a role. And why is that important? Because if we can get a young gun like Berkly Catton on the roster, on the books, that does mean that we're either trading or releasing in some way some veterans, which I know a lot of you who are commenting, and I love it, on YouTube, you want to see. And that might be the swing, that might be the move or moves that tell me that this organization is ready to do whatever it takes to get in that as soon as possible threshold. Because for me, looking at what we've got now and how we've operated in the past, because that's all we can go off of. We don't know what Jason Botterill is going to do as part of the Kraken and our new general manager. But it's been like a dip your toe in the water kind of situation, stocking up on prospects. You got the 2 7-7s. Talk about that. That's on my list of things we talk about with Chandler Stevenson and Brandon Montour, going to get some Stanley Cup champions into the mix. But is it the right mix? I know a lot of people are questioning Eberle. A lot of people are questioning Jaden Schwartz. But do we have a viable replacement for those players right now? I think the answer is no. And do we have enough cap space, enough salary, or just money to get those? I don't think we do, unless we are really looking to disrupt this core, which again is maybe something that Jason Botterill is willing to do. So basically what I'm saying is what I've been saying for the last handful of weeks now, really years. If you're an everydayer and an OGer, I've been talking about this for years. We got to figure out, what does as soon as possible mean? When does that ASAP window start? And what is the hard cutoff? What's the hard cutoff? I don't know. Because when we hear different people from the organization speak, it sounds like it could be anything from 0 to 5 years. And Berkly Catton and what we decide to do with Catton might be an indicator of how this organization is going to move. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. We will definitely keep up with it. We have another team that we get to follow in the postseason, which is super exciting, if not a little sad also. But talking about that before we close out today's Wednesday Hump Day episode, the penultimate episode before my next birthday. Well, I guess yesterday it would be, because I'll do an episode tomorrow. The point is, tomorrow's my birthday. Yes, I wanted to get that in. We are going to talk about ECHL and the AHL, because we've got some teams that are still in the mix there, just like the Chiefs are chugging along while they're hoping to get to where the Chiefs are. We're going to talk about the Firebirds and your Kansas City Mavericks coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
An award-winning mattress can change your life. I speak from experience. It happened to me. After years of uncomfortable sleeps, I recently switched to Bear Mattress, and the results were instant. Bear Mattress is designed with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. I used to deal with night sweats, but Bear's best-in-class cooling ensures optimal temperature regulation, which prevents overheating and helps me stay comfortable all night long. Bear offers a wide variety of mattresses, but to get the right one for you, take their sleep quiz that matches you to your perfect mattress based on body type and sleep preferences. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
All right, Seattle hockey fans, we're going to talk about some playoff hockey here. Again, the Chiefs will be on the road for games 1 and 2 before coming back to try and win a title. But we're going to talk about the ECHL. There was game 2 the other day between Tahoe and your Kansas City Mavericks. Kansas City took game 2, 3-0, a shutout for Jack LaFontaine. 21 shots faced, 21 saves. Vilkman for Tahoe faced 32 shots and made 30 saves. So we saw that LaFontaine, Dunkley, and Bouchard. Cade Bouchard has been great for the Mavericks. Again, Jack LaFontaine seems like he's going to take the team all the way, a la Joey Decord, right? With actually a little bit with Charlotte, definitely with the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Shots were 33-21 in favor of Kansas City. Still not necessarily seeing what they want as far as results on the power play. But again, we've talked to Tad O'Hat about that. He doesn't seem too put out by those numbers. It's all about momentum. Remember, we've talked a lot about momentum under Dave Haxtell. Well, Tad O'Hat believes in momentum, and I think he likes the momentum that his team has, a 2-0 lead over Tahoe. The teams will next play Thursday, May 8th, tomorrow, special day. Haha. They're going to play at Tahoe for the next three. Game 5 would be Sunday if necessary. So it's Thursday, Friday for your Kansas City Mavericks to see if they can move on. Now, when it comes to the AHL, had a game the other day, and your Coachella Valley Firebirds were able to get the win in overtime. So they lost game 1 on May 1st. They won game 2 on Saturday, May 3rd. I think I might have mentioned it the other day. I can't remember. Either way, overtime win there 5-4. Game 3 tonight. Coachella Valley at Abbotsford Canucks. We're looking at big names here. Nico Coco, similarly to LaFontaine, is the go-to guy here. I think got some injuries, and actually Joey Decord alluded to that in his exit interviews. But Coco coming up big. I told you that I've really been impressed with what we've been seeing from some of the other guys as well. Gustav Olofsson and Ty Nelson got things going in game 2. Ty Nelson, not a name that we've heard a lot with regard to, some of the scoring efforts for this Coachella Valley team. But again, in that interview with Jessica Campbell, it's always so interesting, especially at the AHL level, not as much with the ECHL, but definitely at the AHL. Like we heard from Jessica Campbell, this is an opportunity to really put their best foot forward to show what kind of player these individual athletes can be in tight, high stress situations with, again, an opportunity to play for some hardware, to play for a championship on the line. And this is a really great time to see the metal, right? To see how these players can react to that. And if their skill sets fit some of what the Seattle Kraken want to see in the NHL. Either way, they're definitely giving the Seattle Kraken organization a really good opportunity to figure out who they want to invite to camp. Now, we know that there's usually a rookie camp after the draft, so we're expecting that. And, I'm curious to see if any of these guys playing in the AHL will do what we saw Matty Beniers do, what we saw Shane Wright do last year, and come to that camp, gives them some reps, but also it's an opportunity to show that they can be leaders. And so I'm very curious to see, one, if we'll have a head coach by then. Hello. It's about a little over a month away. But two, who are some of the players that are playing for our Coachella Valley Firebirds right now that can really step up to the plate, so to speak? And I think it's exciting. So that's a little touch in with the playoff scenarios happening throughout the pipeline. But that'll do it for our episode. As always, reminder to be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And hey, we hold fast, we stay true, and loud and proud we say always, let's go Kraken, let's go Firebirds, let's go Mavericks, and let's go Chiefs. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace.